Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New York Sun Commercial Industrial Program Project Operation Review. My name is Max Joel, and I'm the director of the New York Sun program. I'll just be giving you a brief introduction today, and then I'll be turning it over to my colleagues Allison Nelligan, Candice Rossi, and Jen Calderon. We will have some time at the end for questions as well. So the goal of today's webinar is really to familiarize and refamiliarize project contractors, staff, especially staff working on New York Sun project applications and invoices, how the process works, and what procedures and rules you can follow to really help us process your applications and requests in a timely manner. We have a very successful program. Last year, New York installed um, over 722 megawatts of commercial industrial scale solar. That's really a testament to the success of the industry, all the hard work by all of you on this call and the companies you represent. But it has been, in a good way, a very rapid growth of the market. It's more than triple the volume of projects that we had. I'm sorry, more than double the volume of projects that we had just a few years ago. So that means that we're all working very diligently and efficiently to keep applications and requests and invoices moving, but we need your help too. The more you can do to review what's discussed on this webinar, make sure that you and your team are familiar with the accompanying materials, our how-to guides, our program rules. The faster we can handle your requests, the faster we can give you contracts and make payments. And that's what really will make this program work for everyone. All right, so before we get into the content, if we could move forward one slide. Just some quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded. It will be posted online on the stakeholder webinar section of the New York Sun Contractor Resources page. The slides will also be posted online. If you have questions throughout, you can ask them in the Q&A feature. Again, just to emphasize, the focus of this webinar is the sort of operations and process and procedure of project applications. The intended audience is the staff of New York Sun participating contractors, especially people who work directly with our applications. If you're new to the New York Sun program, if your company is just getting started thinking of getting involved in New York, that's great. This will be a great orientation for you, but we won't be talking too much about the process for becoming a contractor. Certainly there's information about that on our webpage and you can reach out with questions, but that won't be the focus of today's webinar. Also, we're not going to be focusing on the overall project budget or capacity, program budget rather. There, as some of you may be aware, there's an ongoing proceedings in front of the Public Service Commission considering the long-term New York Sun budget. We won't really be talking about that today. This is all about operations and, once again, making sure that your applications, your invoices, your requests can get processed in the most efficient possible manner. So before I hand it off, I'll just say one more time, this is being recorded, and we'll also be showing a lot of links to resources that are on our webpage to help go even deeper on some of these items. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Allison Nelligan.
Thank you, Max. So welcome, everybody. My name is Allison Nelligan. I'm the Senior Project Manager on the New York Sun team, supporting the Commercial Industrial Megawatt Block Program. As Max stated, we are holding this webinar again this year, as we are still continuing to see some issues and mistakes being made within the application process, modifications, and invoicing. So we really want to take the time to review that with you again. Something we did a little bit different this year is we also did some outreach to our contractors to see where kind of some of their pain points were, to kind of make this presentation a little bit more intuitive for people, and to really look at our how-to guides that we have on the website. So I will be joined today by Candace Rossi and Jen Calderon, who will also be presenting. Unfortunately, Candace has lost her voice, so she will be here answering additional questions for us, but I'll be taking over some of her slides. So just to review the agenda today, we are going to be covering the application submittal process, modifications, extensions, and assignments. Invoicing is really, just also reminding you of some of our fraud protection rules that are in place from our finance office, the contractor status changes, our resources for contractors, and then we'll have an open question and answer period. I do just want to again highlight this webinar is intended to support you as you go through the application process and all the operation statuses for your projects, and just to review some common errors that we see. Again, everyone should refer to the program manual, which was recently just updated. So the newest version is on our resources for contractors guide. That program manual has been moved into one manual that covers both Con Edison and Upstate. So if you have not taken a look at that, I highly recommend you take some time to review that newest manual we've posted. Next slide. So again, this is just a look at the resources for contractors page, where you can find the program manual, how-to guides, assignment forms, and also the past webinars. So you can also see the one that we had done in October, I believe, of last year or the year before. And you'll see under the resources contractors guide, we're really going to be focusing on the project application guidance section. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and go to the New York Sun website, go to the resources for contractors page, and if you want to follow along with some of the how-to guides that we have, please do so. And I would also say if you're going through those how-to guides and you find something that is confusing or is unclear, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking at ways to improve the how-to guides to make things easier for you. So we're always open to making some changes and tweaks to those documents to help. Next slide. And the next. Okay, so we are going to first start with application submissions. So the top three items on this slide are the most important things that we review at first when we get applications coming in. The planning and zoning approvals, your 25% interconnection payment, and ensuring that the system sizes in your application also match your 3-line diagram and your site maps. The reason that we really look at these is we have a very high project maturity requirement for the program, and we do see a lot of applications coming in without proper planning and zoning approvals or proper 25% interconnection payments. Not having those properly submitted as outlined in the program manual will automatically move your application back into unsubmitted status. So we do see this a lot as you see the block declining. I know you guys want to get your projects in and you want to secure your funding, but really it's only going to delay the process because we will move those back to unsubmitted. We have to be sure that we're being fair to all projects coming in, and submitting things that are not applicable or do not meet the requirements just make things delay longer. So our recommendation is, if you have not, to please use NYSERDA's planning and zoning form that is on our resources for contractors page. It just makes it easier because it outlines everything that we need and the town signs that document. If you decide to use the resolutions from the town or the town meetings, please just ensure that those are on the town letterhead or they are signed by somebody from the town so that we can confirm that they are from the town. We can't accept drafts. We can't accept preliminary ones. And it's just, so just make sure those are there. If you're submitting everything with all the meeting minutes, if you can highlight the section that is particular to your project, that's also very helpful to us as well. So sometimes those pages are, 15, 20 pages. If you can highlight where we need to look, that just makes our review time a little bit easier. 25% interconnection payments. Again, the utilities have all agreed and have been doing this for quite some time, is they will send you an email either directly from the portal or separately that they have received and accepted your 25% payment. Wire transfers, copies of checks, those are not accepted because we don't know if the utility has actually accepted them. Please make sure with your emails that it includes the project name, CSER ID, and the date that payment was accepted. That is also so we can confirm when your 75% payment should be due. System sizes and equipment must match all documentation. So we are seeing a lot of times rounding on the site maps and 3 lines, which is not ideal, but as long as you're listing out all of the equipment and we can do the math to ensure it's the same size, that is fine. But we need to make sure that the system size is correct because the total DC system size that you're applying for is what your incentive is based on. So ensuring that those are correct is helpful. If there are mismatches, we do have to move it back to unsubmitted so you can update the equipment properly in the portal. Next slide. So another major item is project addresses must match all documentation. So the planning and zoning, your CSER, your site plans, your 3 lines all need to have the same document address so that we can confirm the parcel is the same. So we'll get into this a little bit more under invoicing. We do realize that a lot of these upstate projects are in open fields that may not have a particular address associated with them, and a new address may be assigned later. And we will certainly work with you on what needs to be provided so we can update that. But at least for the initial application, all documents should match. So the newest thing that we have been requesting is the utility interconnection application confirmation. So this is very specific to ensuring that which projects are required to pay prevailing wage and which projects are opting into paying prevailing wage. So please just make sure that the documentation is showing when you initially applied to the utility, not when the preliminary screening happened, not when the CSER started. It's really when you submitted that initial document to the utility. And finally, just a reminder on payees. So the new rule that we instituted in the last program manual update is we are no longer contracting to payees at the time of application. You can still identify a payee at the time of application, but we will not register any payees. We will not set them up in our financial database. It's really just an identification of who you may want to have the payee be in the future. All contract awards moving forward are done to the contractor of record. Next slide. And I will pass this on to Jen to talk about site mapping and NOIs.
Thank you, Allison. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Calderon, a program manager here for New York Sun. So for the notice of intents, or we refer to them as the NOI, on projects that are located within a state certified agricultural district. If your project is stacked, it will be required to undergo a combined review process. And this applies even if one of them is already built or if it's previously undergone the NOI process. And stacked projects are defined in our program manual as 2 or more projects, which are greater than 1 megawatt and are abutting and located on parcels owned by the same landowner. These can have separate points of interconnection, and the impacted MSG 1 through 4 acreage is aggregated across the stacked projects to determine the required mitigation. A new mitigation calculator has also been updated for 2025 for the mineral soil group 1 through 4 values, and that should be available for everyone soon, hopefully this month. As far as the project site mapping data, this can be submitted in one of 2 ways, either as KMZ files, which would be our recommendation, or as shape files. The shape files can have as many as 5 physical files with the same name, but they'll have different extensions. So all of the extension files will need to be included, and they should be submitted within a zipped folder. You'll name this folder the application number with the zip name. Inside of the folder, you want to make sure all the shape files are going to use the same naming convention, which should be the zip name and then underscore, either fence, footprint, parcel, etc. You will want to ensure that there are not any additional files within that zipped folder. Next slide. I'll hand it back to Allison.
Thanks, Jen. So one of the things we heard back from the contractors was more on timelines for application submissions and the other processes. So in general, NYSERDA will review newly submitted applications within 5 days of the submitted date. Reviews will again depend on the completeness of the applications and if applications have to be moved back to unsubmitted status. Award notification. So just a reminder that projects in the commercial industrial program move into receive status once all documents are approved in the portal. And then if for projects that are over $1 million in funding, those projects will receive an award letter. So they will move from received status to pending approval. That pending approval timeframe is when we are generating the award letter through our financial database, and any project over $1 million must be signed by our president and CEO, Doreen Harris. It sometimes takes a little bit longer, dependent on her schedule, but we would like to say that within 2 weeks of it moving into pending approval status, you should see the award letters come through. Anything under $1 million, you will see that move a little bit more quickly from received to pending approval to approval status, since those do not need to be signed. Next slide. Okay, I will pass it back over to Jen to talk about modifications.
Thank you, Allison. All right, so for project modifications, you're going to want to confirm before submitting these that the populated incentive amount is correct. Sometimes the specific project adders don't properly carry over. So if you notice that something is off, you can email either myself or Allison, and we can go in and manually update it as long as all of your other edits have already been made. You will also need to upload both the final as-built 3 line, which needs to be stamped by a New York State professional engineer, along with the final site map. If there's going to be a change to the incentive due to the size equipment changing, you may also have to upload a fully signed application. The timeline for project modification reviews, NYSERDA will review them within 5 days from when they are submitted. That review time is dependent on the completeness of your modification. Once your request has been approved, the contractor on record will receive an email notification directly from the portal. Next slide, please. All right, so for extensions, extension requests, you're going to need to include a valid reason for your requests, including all of your delays relevant to your project. In addition, you're going to need to provide confirmation that your project's planning and zoning approvals are still in place, confirmation that 100% of your interconnection upgrades have been paid and are still in good standing with the utility. And then we need you to upload a recent project schedule. This should be inclusive of all IOU timelines, the permits, equipment deliveries, and construction milestones. And this document can be uploaded directly into the portal. You can use step 7 of 8 of the application wizard. Next slide, please. So timelines for extension requests, they should be submitted within 30 days of your completion deadline. We will review them within 5 days of their submittal date. And again, that's dependent on the completeness of the information provided. If we review and determine that we need additional information, the contractor on record will receive an email notification from the portal outlining what is needed. And then once it's been approved, you will also receive approval via the portal, and it will show you your new completion deadline. Next slide, please. Extension reporting is going to be turned on for your project if it has received 540 or more approved days. So for those with 540 days, the project will be required to provide quarterly updates with all of the information outlined here in this table. This should be uploaded directly into the project record using the application wizard. And for those with 720 or more approved days, you will be required to provide monthly updates. The reporting requirement is going to remain until your project has achieved PTO. And I'll hand it back over to Allison for our next section.
Great, thanks, Jen. Thank you, John. All right, so everybody's favorite topic, assignments. So again, as I stated in the beginning, payees are no longer awarded to. So you can only identify payees. So payee assignments will now only be done prior to the commercial operation invoice being submitted. And this is only going to be happening if the contractor is going to be the long-term owner of the project. If you are going to be selling your project to another contractor, we are no longer going to allow you to do a payee assignment and then request a full assignment at a later date. So the only other time a payee can be identified and awarded the incentives awarded to is at the time of a full assignment. So with payee assignments, payees must register with NYSERDA. We will then confirm their EIN with the IRS and set up a supplier ID in our financial database. We request that you do not request payee assignments until the final EIN is set up with the IRS. This is because if the EIN is not a match with the IRS, we are unable to finalize your request for a payee assignment. Just a reminder, no new award letters are issued for payee assignments. Notification of the approval of the assignment will be done via the portal. Contractors are still responsible for meeting all terms and conditions of the program, and identifying a payee is only allowing NYSERDA to release the incentive funds to that new identified payee. Once NYSERDA has executed a payee assignments, no new payee assignments will be accepted. Next slide. So timeline for payee assignments. Again, payee assignments will be reviewed within about 5 days after they submitted. And again, processing time will be dependent on the payee registration and ensuring that the project modification is signed by everybody and meets all program requirements. The real main delay in payee assignments is not having the payee submit the payee registration to NYSERDA. The payees will receive an email once you submit the modification form to us. They will receive a separate email with a link to register the payee. Once the payee supplier ID is created, that is when we can actually start the processing of the assignment in our financial database. Now, we like to say that these can be done within a week just because there is not a long approval process for payee assignments. However, depending on the amount of assignments that we have in-house, that time frame could be a little bit longer. So if you have any if you're ready to submit your invoice or you see any potential timelines for being paid for your incentives, just keep that in mind when you're submitting the payee assignments. We'll do our best to get them done in a week, but they could take a little bit longer. Next slide. So where we see most of the common errors are within our full assignment requests. So full assignments are only allowed once per project prior to the commercial operation invoice being submitted. Contractors must notify NYSERDA of any sale of any projects and are responsible for meeting all terms and conditions of the program until NYSERDA approves the assignment request. So we have seen recently that projects have been sold and the new owners are already taking over, and some new owners think that it's a simple transfer to get them into their portal. The current contractor is responsible for submitting all documents through the portal and is required to meet all terms and conditions until we've actually transferred the project into the new contractor's portal. So just some reminders of what's required before we can allow a full assignment. 100% of your interconnection upgrade costs must be made, and your CSER milestone deliverable must be marked completed prior to requesting a full assignment. Again, the CSER milestone is just the copy of your executed interconnection agreement and written confirmation that you've paid your remaining 75% of any interconnection costs. You will receive emails from NYSERDA regarding any outstanding ones. So hopefully you've already worked with your CSER milestone, and that should already be completed before you submit your request. All sales must be to a new contractor in the program, and the contractor must be in good standing. So if the company you have sold the project to is not an approved contractor, we will not be able to execute the assignment until they become an approved contractor within the program. Make sure you're using the right assignment form. So under the resources for contractors page, we have the different assignment forms. So if you have received an incentive with no special adders, just the base incentive, you would just use that form. If your project received the community adder, you would use the full assignment form that had that. If you received an inclusive community solar adder or the expanded solar for all award, you would need to make sure that you use those corresponding assignment forms. So if you should happen to have the community adder and the ICSA, you would use the form that is for the ICSA, because we need to capture both the application and the contract number for the ICSA award. So John, if you can just go ahead and click on that sample assignment form. This form will also be posted on the resources for contractors page, but we just wanted to highlight this for you guys as well. And this might just take a second. Great. And John, can you just zoom in just a little bit? Yeah, that should be good. Okay, great. Thank you. So this is just the sample general assignment form. If this had an ICSA or ESFA award, you would see the additional contract numbers listed in the top. If your ESFA award had a $0 amount, your contract number would be NA, and you would just list the application number. Now, some of the common errors that we see on this form is that people are not including the company names. So you cannot leave the form when you look at it online. It just has assignee, assignor. You must fill those in every section. You cannot just fill it in at the top and then not include it in the other sections. The other thing we do see is the down at the bottom where the agreement date that it was executed. A lot of times that is left blank. And then you should also make sure you're including the person who is signing from each company and their title. So making sure they are actually signing this form. The other thing is that the new contractor who signs this form must also sign the project modification form. So that is a legal requirement that we have. So if John Smith is signing for the new contractor, when you're entering the information on the project modification, John Smith should be listed for the new contractor. John, we can go ahead and go back to the presentation. Great, thank you. So the final thing you'll need to do is upload the fully signed application for all contractors as well. Did we skip ahead a slide, John? No, that's the assignment form. Okay, we're all set. So failure to meet these. So if you're not uploading your full executed assignment form, if you're not uploading your project modification form, or you're uploading the original application that you signed, these will automatically be rejected and you will need to start over your assignment request. Next slide. So there's a little bit of a dilemma here with us with payees and assignments. So prior to the new rules where we are only contracting to a contractor, some of you may have identified a payee at the time of your application. So if you have identified a payee and they were awarded through the program, you will need to reach out to Jen or myself if you're going to be making any changes to that payee, either the company name, a contact. This way we can go in and edit the payee role, which will open it for you when you create your modification to make those updates. If the payee's name is remaining the same, you are still required to re-register the payee. And the reason that we have this rule is we need to, again, reconfirm the EIN and update any of the contact information. And we will need to update the contact on the project roles as well. So we have heard in the past everything's staying the same, and when we run the EINs because somebody's re-registered, we see that there are differences. So that's critical that you re-register that payee if the name is remaining the same, so we can make sure that information is correct, because we want to make sure we're making awards to the right entity. Again, when entering the contractor information, you check the box for the full assignment, and then you have a text box that will tell you to enter the new contractor company name and then the contact. And again, that's the same contact who signed the full assignment form. If the contact is not listed, again, we will either reject the request or move it back into unsubmitted status so that you can update those properly and we can have a properly signed application. And as Jen had mentioned before, with modifications, please also make sure you look at the funding amount on the project modification application. We do sometimes see that the funding does not always pull over if you had the community adder or if we had added the prevailing wage to your project. So please take a look at that so that we can ensure that the funding is correct and we can update those for you if you see any discrepancies. So John, if you can go ahead and click on that sample project modification. And again, this might just take a minute. Thank you, John. So one thing that we have heard is some contractors are concerned because the contractor name and company name are not crossed out up here. I know it's not ideal and it's not exactly how I wanted things to work, but sometimes we have to work within the rules of what we can do within Salesforce. So that's why you will see at the bottom of that table, the new contractor company name listed. And so you can see it should be listed as our example here, Solar Farm Corporation, William Smith. So William Smith should have also signed the full assignment form. So you will see the edits and changes there. If you can scroll down, John. The equipment will be listed again. It will have the updated the total funding amount. If you scroll down a little bit more. Again, just a reminder to make sure that that final total incentive amount is correct. And then if you can just scroll down a little bit more, we'll have the signature lines. And it's important that everybody signs the different things. So the customer must sign, the payee must sign, the current contractor, and then the new contractor must sign these forms. And John, if you can go back to the presentation. Okay. All right, next slide. So I want to talk about some improvements that we have made if your project is associated with the Inclusive Community Solar Adder or with the Expanded Solar for All Adder. We have made some efficiency improvements here within NYSERDA. So if your project has the ICSA on that project modification form that John had just brought up, you will see that it now also has the ICSA award dollar amount. So what this does is it no longer requires us to move forward with the New York Sun assignment, and then we have to notify the ICSA team to do some updates, send you a new application for that to be signed and for them to start the assignment process. So this will now allow us to route and get approved and execute both assignments at the same time. That will save delays on you guys seeing one project in one portal and then the other project not in your portal. And it will just make it a seamless process for you. So both of these will be accomplished at the same time and both will be updated in the Salesforce at the same time. The same with ESFA, so no new applications would be required for the ESFA, but we will now be going ahead and just updating all the records once the New York Sun assignment has been executed. So it's a little bit less work for you guys and a little bit more streamlined process for us. Next slide. So timelines for full assignments. This is really where I want to ask for your cooperation. We really are asking you guys to allow 3 weeks for NYSERDA to process the assignments requests. Keep this time frame in mind when you're working on your closings. Last minute requests may not be accommodated. So as you can see, while we have streamlined everything that needs to be done, there is a lot of back and forth that is happening with assignments, and we can't always accommodate last minute requests. So as you're looking at your closing timeframes, if you need things done, please keep that in mind. And if you do need something sooner than later, please let us know so we can help make sure all of your documents are in order so it can make the process go a little bit faster. Assignments are also routed through our financial database and our contracting team, so legal review and contracting team approvals need to happen before our director of contracts can execute the assignments. So that's why we do ask for that 3-week timeline, just because of their reviews and approvals that they also have. We have a big contracting and legal team, but they also manage other programs as well. So we have to be mindful of their time as well. Again, full assignments will be reviewed within initially 5 days after being submitted. And again, processing time will be dependent on the payee registrations and the completeness of the requests. Most delays are in setting up the payee or full assignments not being correct. Once the payee supplier ID is created, again, that is when we can officially start the assignment process in our financial database. An assignment letter will be issued for all assignments once they are approved. So that will be sent to the new contractor and the old contractor once we've made all the updates in the portal. So both contractors will receive that assignment letter for their files. I would also ask, I know you guys have had a lot of turnover, so if you can kind of save these where anybody within your team can actually access these. Sometimes I get requests for things that were signed 2 years ago, and it does sometimes just take us a little while to get those documents. So if you can save them where anybody can access them, that would be appreciated. Next slide. Okay. Invoicing. I'm just going to take a quick glance at Candace's notes just so I don't miss anything that I know she wanted to cover. So the first item is that, as most of you know, we have moved to the 100% not to exceed incentive. Will be paid at the commercial operation invoice unless you want to receive the 50-25-25 payment structure. So if you do want to receive your incentive in 3 payments, you would just need to notify NYSERDA before developing or drafting that initial invoice. Any system changes will require you to submit a project modification prior to submitting your invoice. If we're reviewing the invoice and see that you have the system sizes are not a match, you will have to go back and do the project modification. So please make sure you submit any modifications before you submit your invoice, because it may also impact the dollar amount of your incentive. So projects are still required to submit data to the DER website for the 2 years from the date of the commercial operation invoice is approved. But again, since we are no longer doing production payments, backfilling of data is no longer required. However, we do require that you ensure that data is flowing to the site. I believe that Frontier still is sending emails if it's been a long period of time. Again, you do not have to backfill the data, but please make sure that those corrections are fixed so that they're receiving data for those 2 years. Again, so as we mentioned before, site addresses must match all documents. So as I stated, we do know that a lot of these large parcels sometimes have new county 911 addresses, or there's another change in the address. If that happens, please let us know prior to submitting your invoice. This way we can help you provide the proper documentation. We can let you know what's needed, and then we can go ahead and update that address. But again, we have to confirm that it is located at the same parcel that it was awarded at. The final as-built 3-line must be stamped and signed by a New York State PE. We have been seeing instances where the New York State PE is not signing or is not stamping those 3 lines. So again, that's just a reminder that those need to be stamped and signed by a New York State PE. The electrical certificates must include all equipment, make, model, and number. If it has the total DC system size on it as well, that's a plus, but it's not required. But again, we are seeing people uploading a picture of the just the little sticker that they give you. That is not acceptable, or a closeout from the town. We have specific requirements of the electrical certificate must be included. And then I just really want to make sure I don't miss anything on Candace's note on the NOIs. So the NOI final determination letter is required for projects located in state certified agricultural districts. So the NOI final determination letter is required. If you are purchasing a project, we recommend ensuring that you receive this letter from the previous contractor, as it is the contractor's responsibility to provide this for the invoice and meet any required mitigation addressed in that letter. Next slide. So contractors in provisional and probationary status will require a NYSERDA inspection prior to the approval of the invoice. So again, once we can approve all of the invoice documents, we will notify our quality assurance team, who will go out and reach out to you directly to schedule that inspection. NYSERDA's finance office has 30 days to make payment once they receive the invoice. If after 30 days of the program staff approval, if you have not received payment, please notify us. Do not wait months to inquire about payments. Just please include the application number and or the invoice number that you're inquiring about. It just will make us a little bit easier for us to look up where the payment is processing. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a reminder. This was the same slide as we had presented last time, just regarding some changes to our finance, fraud, and protection rules. So our finance office must confirm ACH payments with the payee contact for every payment. So again, if you still have any potential outstanding anniversary payments, our finance office will need to confirm with the payee the banking information for those payments. We do recommend that you do not sign up for ACH until you are ready to submit your COD payment. If you submit that ACH sooner, it will just cause our finance office to yet again contact you right before payment because they've received your invoice. Our finance office does prefer that all payments are made via ACH, mainly because of the dollar amounts. Most of our awards are well over $1 million. So if you're not set up for ACH at the time of invoicing, our finance office will reach out to the contact and ask to register for ACH payments. If you do want to receive a check, our finance office will ask that you confirm the mailing address before payment is released. We do not want to see those checks lost or those returned to NYSERDA. If there are any changes to the point of contact for the payee once ACH is up, you must notify NYSERDA so we can update that in both of our systems. That again just will help us and our finance team to confirm those payments. If we are unable to confirm the payee or they have left and we weren't notified, it will delay the payment being released from our finance office. Next slide. So this again is just a reminder of contractor statuses in our QA inspection rules. So all contractors in provisional and probationary status will need to have their projects inspected before their invoice can be approved. Again, we can't schedule the inspection until all the required invoice documents have been reviewed and approved. Once a provisional contractor has passed 3 consecutive inspections, that contractor will be moved to full status. Full status contractors will have inspections done because we do 100% of inspections. They will happen after we have released that invoice payment. If the full contractor has failed an inspection, the contractor will be moved to probationary status. And the rules for changing to the probationary status is mainly because we have increased the payment structure so that 100% payments are being done at commercial operation invoice. So if you are moved into probationary status, you will then need to have your sites inspected prior to release of payment again, and you will need to pass 3 consecutive inspections in order to be reinstated back into full status. So if you're reinstated into full status and then you fail another inspection, you would then again be put into probationary status. And just for reference, projects that receive an inspection score of a 1 to 2 are considered failing, and projects with a score of 3 to 5 are considered passing. And we have included this link for you to go back through to look at the QA policies and procedures manual. And again, on that resources that can be found on the resource for contractors page. And it also has additional checklists and things that you can do prior to invoicing if you'd like to make sure all of your sites meet the requirements of the inspection. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Again, so this is just putting up the resources for contractors page again. It has the different accordions there that you can look at for additional items on other topics such as prevailing wage. Again, our quality assurance reference guides, our webinars, and again, the program manual and the project application guidance. Next slide. Great. Well, that is our presentation for today. We will take a pause to look and see what questions have come in. Again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature and we can answer those questions. So I will pause for just a minute while we take a look at any questions that have come in. Okay, sorry about that. I could not access the Q&A. So the first question we have is, can you please clarify what NYSERDA is looking for to satisfy the email confirmation, NYSERDA's data agent, and the invoice submission? So again, as we stated, all projects are required to submit data to our DER website. So in the back of the manual under technical, there is information on how to reach out to Frontier Energy. So you must work with Frontier. They will get everything set up on their website. It usually takes about 2 weeks for them to confirm that the production is flowing accurately to their website. And then Frontier will send you an email that says that your site is now reporting to the website, along with a link so that you can see it on their website. Next question, confirming that 100% of contractors in full status are inspected rather than the 20% as referenced in the standard quality insurance fact sheet. Yes, so for the commercial industrial program, 100% of our projects are inspected. So full contractors are inspected after we have released payment. Provisional and probationary contractors are inspected prior to the release of the invoice. Again, yes, the presentation will be available online after the meeting. Let's see, can we revisit the project timeline? How long should a project in the submitted section before moving to the next phase? So again, projects in submitted status, it will depend on the completeness of the project for us to say how long it should take. We do also tend to try and batch our projects that are moving forward into receive status. So it usually will be about a week or so if all of your documents are approved. So it's really hard to say an exact time frame because it really depends on how complete the applications are and how many applications we have in-house, but we do try to move them as quickly as possible. All right, so let's see the next question. In the event of a project sale, can the payee be changed now, contractor and customer, after close of a project sale? So the short answer is yes. If you are doing a full assignment of a project, if your project was awarded with a payee, at full assignment request, you can then change the payee. If your project was awarded to the contractor directly, as part of your full assignment, you can identify the payee. So the customer is not technically allowed to change because of the way that the program manual is written. So if this is a community solar project or a remote crediting project, what we tend to do is update the customer contact after the assignment has been executed, unless there is for some reason that it needs to be changed beforehand. So if you have any of those particular questions on a project, I would say just reach out to myself or Jen, and we'll be able to walk you through the process of what needs to be done and what we can or cannot allow for changes of that. Are digital signatures accepted? So yes, in the program manual, it does outline what forms of digital signatures are accepted. So I would just refer back to the program manual. I will say that in the portal itself, if you request to do electronic signature, that electronic signature only goes to the customer. So what you would have to do is go back, grab that application, and then send it off to the new contractor and the payee to sign. So sometimes I do recommend that contractors just use the print function and send them out that way. But yes, digital signatures are accepted. Okay, so can you please clarify when the best time is to submit a payee registration? So if you are the long-term owners of a project, and this is a newly awarded project, you should submit your payee request right before you're ready to submit your commercial operation invoice. So once that payee, you've confirmed the final EIN with the IRS, everything's set up, that is when you should go ahead and submit that payee registration. Again, payees will receive notification when the project modification to assign the payee has been sent to NYSERDA. Okay, so can you confirm that changes to a project equipment specifications, size, etc., does not negate a prior award, only payment amount in the event of a change in project size? So that is correct. If you have any changes in equipment, system sizes, anything like that, we request that you submit a project modification after you have completely built the project. This way, it does not impact your incentive. The reason we do not allow project modifications, usually at the time of a sale, if you're still in construction, is because let's say you're building a 7 megawatt project and the new contractor says, oh, you know what, I think we're only going to be able to build a 6. That most likely will result in a smaller incentive because of the difference in the system size. But if something happens during construction, they're able to procure, larger modules or something like that. And they're like, oh, you know what, we can build that 7. You would not get that additional funding back once we do the modification. So again, project modifications should be done once the system is complete, has reached mechanical operation, and again, before you submit your incentive. So the next question is in the submitted phase, will requests for additional information come through the portal? Yes. So what will happen is if there are documents that we need additional information on or do not meet program rules, those documents will be rejected, and we will send an email with what is wrong with the document or what clarification we may need on that project or that document, and the request will come through the portal. So I know that this has been an issue for some contractors because of turnover. So what we highly recommend is having a generic email that can go to multiple people within your team, because the email will only go to the primary contractor that was identified on the project. So that is one recommendation that we do have. But yes, I do know that it sometimes says if you do not submit the documentations within 5 days, your application will be rejected. Again, we tend not to do that. It's really just so that that contractors are responsive to our requests. If after multiple attempts we have not received any confirmation, then we most likely would move your application back into unsubmitted status. But we do try to work with you as much as possible on those rejected documents so you can cure those documents and move forward within the process. Next question. Can you please review what is needed for site address changes and what is acceptable to explain the difference in addresses? So again, it's going to be very specific to each individual project. Again, some projects might be out in an open field that don't have a specific address, and the town or the county has issued a 911 address. So really what we're looking for is documentation that covers the change of the address. So if it was originally assigned one address, there's documentation that says this was the old address, this is the new address. NYSERDA also uses the point of interconnection, so the address that's on the utility approval letter for the address that we use in our system. It's just so that it's consistent, because we do know sometimes the utilities will use, a pole address instead of the actual physical location. So again, if that's just the issue, we can work with you. So I would say if you have any address changes, just reach out to Jen, Candace, or myself, and we can work with you on what actual documentation you you need. Sometimes it's just an email, or we can tell it's the same parcel. We just need some documentation. So please just reach out to us on any of those. Next question, where can we access the list of approved equipment? So all equipment is on the California Energy Commission website. So our portal is synced with that database about every 2 weeks. So if the equipment is not listed on the CEC website by the time you invoice, then the project would not be eligible for funding. So you can work with the manufacturer directly to make sure that they are listed with the CEC. If you should have any issues or questions, you can always, again, feel free to reach out to one of us and we can help you through that process. All right, I'm just going to take 1 second and then I'll be right back to answer some additional questions. All right, thank you for letting me take a second. Okay, so the next question. And I think we might be at time. John, do we have a few minutes just to answer these last couple of questions, or?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So according to the timeline for the full assignments to completed, you mentioned that contractors must allow 3 weeks for NYSERDA to complete that. Could you please confirm if you're referring to 3 weeks before the sale of the project, or what the reference time would be for those 3 weeks to begin? So it's 3 weeks for us to process the assignment once we receive all documentation in there. So sometimes contractors have said we are closing tomorrow and we need this assignment executed so we can close. So those are the timeframes that we're looking for. So if you need our assignment to be part of your closing, that's when we really recommend the 3-week timeframe because we can't always accommodate, we're going to closing tomorrow. That's just something we can't usually do. So that's why we ask for 3 weeks. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Jen or myself, and we can help you through if there's a particular issue with a specific project. Just to confirm, transferring of project is done through the full assignment form. And when you do this, the new contractor pay will receive the incentive. That's correct. So you do a project modification to do the full assignment. You have to sign the full assignment form in the project modification application. And once that is executed and approved by a director of contracts, the project will move into the new contractors portal. And if a payee was identified, that payee will receive the incentive. Okay, so we did get a question about a builder. So the commercial industrial program does not use the builder. So I'm not sure if that question is more related to Con Edison for larger size projects. So if you could just send us an email separately, we can address that question outside of this presentation. And then I think the last question is, if the project has been amended and the module types change, is this a modification that can be done through the project modification form? So yes, any equipment changes, wattage, anything like that, you do it through the project modification and you just update the components page. What we will ask for is an updated final site plan and an updated final 3-line diagram that is signed by a New York State PE as part of that modification request. And I think that is all of the questions that we have. So I appreciate everybody staying on just a few more minutes so we could go through that additional questions. I think there's just 2 more slides that we have that's really just reminders. John, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so again, if you want to sign up to receive emails from New York Sun, again, you can go to our New York Sun webpage and hit the contact us and you can sign up for that. And then the next slide, John. If you want to add your email to our contacts, again, you can do that to ensure that you're receiving our emails through the solar announcements at nycerta.ny.gov. So those are just reminders. And again, the presentation will be on our website. We will again notify you once that presentation is posted. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for this presentation. I hope you find it helpful as you navigate through the application, assignment, and project and extension processes through New York Sun and the CNI program. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to Candace, Jen, or myself. We'll be happy to answer those questions. And if you have not done so, again, please review the program manual. It has a lot of the questions that you guys ask already in there. And if there's clarifications, please let us know. And please take a look at those how-to guides. And again, if you find something that's unclear or it's not matching what you're seeing in the portal, please let us know that as well. We want to make sure that we're doing, we have these how-to guides to make your lives easier and can help you through the process. So again, if you see anything or if there's a how-to guide that's not on there that you think would be beneficial, please let us know that as well. So again, thank you very much for attending the webinar, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day.